Anyone with a college-age child knows that college costs are soaring, not just for professional school, but for every school, including state universities. And they've jumped 80% overall at private nonprofit colleges. At public four-year institutions over the last 30 years, they've gone up 124%. And there's research showing that the current federal higher education financing system actually contributes to the problem more than addresses the solution. Some colleges and universities have used the availability of federal loans to increase tuitions, and this has left many students drowning in debt with no pathway for success. President Biden's answer was to enact his $400 billion student debt scheme, which doesn't forgive debt. It merely transfers the responsibility to pay it back away from the person who willingly took on the debt to taxpayers who maybe never went to college, pay back their student loans, in some cases sacrificing lifestyle in order to pay back those student loans. And by the way, President Biden's scheme does nothing to drive the underlying cause of the debt crisis. According to the Center for a Responsible Federal Budget, if this student debt loan transfer goes into effect, students and taxpayers will be back in the same situation in 5 years. Total debt at that point will be $1.6 trillion. This is not a fix. This is merely a Band-Aid, and the Band-Aid saddles taxpayers with a burden again in 5 years. That's why this morning we introduced the Lowering Education Cost and Debt Act, a package of 5 bills aimed at directly addressing the issues driving skyrocketing cost of higher education and the increasing amounts of debt students take on to attend school. And unlike President Biden's plan, this actually addresses the root causes of the student debt crisis. Our legislation puts downward pressure on tuition. It empowers students to make educational decisions that put them on the track to both academically and financially succeed. It simplifies the student loan borrowing and repayment process so students don't have to take out more loans than they need and can navigate the student loan process without confusion.
Quite obvious. Students need clear information to shop around. You can't compare costs if you can't tell what the final cost is. The Government Accountant Office did a study, found 91% of the colleges understate their true cost, their cost in aid letters. So this focuses upon these letters. A third of the colleges don't distinguish in these letters between loans and grants. This bill, the Understanding the True Cost of College Act, creates a standard letter for easy comparisons. So if students are going to make wise choices about the cost of education and what sort of help they get to go to college, they ought to be comparing apples with apples, not apples with oranges. And the way the environment is today, you can't read one letter from one university and another from another one and know what the facts are.
You know, young people are paying a lot more for an education than higher education and getting a lot less, and that's wrong. More and more of our young people are starting their careers with a huge burden of debt, and it's unfortunate. As a result, many are putting off their goals like owning a home or starting a family. Debt is a problem. Democrats say the solution is to just give away more taxpayer dollars. But we've already tried that. And folks, it don't work. We got to put some solutions to it. The last 35 years have shown that a government blank check to the universities has made problems worse. I've seen it firsthand. Unlimited government loans have done nothing to increase access to education. All they've done is raise costs for students, whether they take a loan or not. Everybody's having to pay. Today, we're here to say enough's enough. I'm here with my colleagues to introduce a bill called the GOAL Act. How appropriate that is for me. I didn't score many touchdowns when I was coaching, but it's the GOAL Act.
Not against LSU.
Not against LSU, that's right. But it's about helping our young people achieve goals, like buying a house. The GOL Act would set a maximum limit on federal graduate school loans, a limit. This would prevent some of the worst examples of students being exploited for profit. It would force schools to bring down cost and to compete for students. What an idea. It would also protect students from getting buried in debt they can never, ever pay.
The system has been gamed, not necessarily to benefit the educational aspirations and achievement of a student, but rather to take advantage of the fact, as others have pointed out, that there are virtually unlimited amounts of money available to borrow to go to colleges and universities. And it's no coincidence that as more money has become available and as the loans, the debts that students incur go up, that the tuition goes up. The colleges understand that very well. Again, we're not painting with a broad brush and saying everybody is guilty of gaming the system, but it certainly happens, and the consequences of it can be dire. First of all, we know the Biden administration has said the best way to deal with this is to cancel student loan debt. Well, you can't cancel a contract. And what they are suggesting, in essence, is transferring that liability to taxpayers. Again, not everybody decides to go to college, so why should they have to pay for your student loan debt if you did? If you decided to enter into a contract to repay that student loan and you don't do it, there should be consequences associated with it. There should be personal responsibility. But one of the things that is confusing about it is that there's so many different loan repayment systems. As a matter of fact, there are 9 different loan repayment systems. And what this bill would do in part would be to reduce that to 2. In other words, to simplify it. And it would also limit the ability to get federal loans to pay for deep degree programs that will not confer an education that will allow you to earn an income sufficient to repay that loan. In other words, this is something, again, that responsible colleges and universities do. But when you're a 17 or 18-year-old kid, you may not understand that all this debt you're incurring, that you're going to have to pay back sooner or later, and the course of studies that you're pursuing may not permit you to do that. So there needs to be a serious conversation between the schools and the students about practically how am I going to meet my responsibilities. So this bill will increase accountability and ensure student loans are paying for degrees that actually produce the higher income necessary for graduates to repay them, saving taxpayers nearly $50 billion. So I'm proud to join my colleagues in this important effort. This is a far superior way to deal with the problem of mounting student debt than what the Biden administration is doing, which undermines personal responsibility. There's no accountability for the colleges and universities that don't counsel their students about pursuing, not accumulating debt that will you won't be able to repay because you're not pursuing a degree that will allow you to get that sort of income.